Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is January 23rd, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery. You can see BC, Washington, Oregon, Pacific Ocean, ridge of high pressure kind of dominating the west coast here, but we will have systems riding up over the top of that, mainly impacting British Columbia. Some nice snowfall amounts across the higher terrain, especially maybe clipping Washington, Idaho, and Montana here over the next day or two. And then we're going to turn to a pattern change where we're going to bring colder air down across the region. Still great uncertainty with any kind of lowland snowfall amounts associated with that, as it doesn't look like it has a lot of moisture to work with right now. We'll take a look at those details here in a moment. National Weather Service current hazards: dense fog across the Willamette Valley here is really the only thing going on across much of the Pacific Northwest. Some wind advisories and high wind warnings down in California. Now, taking a look here, Spokane, National Weather Service, Monday and Tuesday, cloudy with light snow here. Watch out. Generally less than an inch, but it doesn't take much to make things slick. Some patchy freezing fog, reduced visibility are possible also. So heads up for that. Pattern change end of the week. Missoula, Montana, Friday, Saturday. Temperatures becoming colder than normal. That cold air is likely on its way here, and this would bring some widespread snow across the northern Rockies there. Challenging travel conditions. Nice graphic here from the National Weather Service, Missoula, Montana. This is looking at current conditions right about here. So now we're looking at a weak system moving through BC, but bringing decent amounts, maybe clipping Washington as we go on in through tomorrow morning with a couple inches, the higher terrain of the Cascades there. Idaho, Montana. But you can see the ridge dominating the weather for the most part, pointing that storm track up towards Haida Gwaii in western BC here as we go on in through Wednesday night into Thursday morning before that pattern change starts to occur as we go through the end of the week. More on that here in a moment as well. Now, this is looking at total snow Kuchera through the 90-hour period here. North Cascades, you can see BC is the winner, the Rockies and the coastal range there. Maybe Idaho, higher terrain, and Montana as well, but not much for the Oregon Cascades or southern Washington Cascades, and certainly nothing for the Willamette Valley or the Puget Sound Valley there. Now, this is looking at 24-hour precipitation. This is a running total here, but if I play this backwards and then go back forward, you can see not much for Washington, Oregon, just some of the higher terrain of BC, the higher terrain of Washington, North Cascades as well. So not much going on over the next 90 hours, but that's going to change here. Now, looking at the extended forecast here, European run, 500 millibars, 18,000 feet. Ridge over the area now. System moves by here. Ridge retrogrades here as we go on in through Thursday night, and a little lobe moves down the backside here as we go through Friday. Additional cold air moving across British Columbia here, but it is a fairly offshore trajectory here, so not much chance for lowland snow, at least with the first wave here. We may get additional shots, though, as you can see here with that cold air hanging around as we go on in through the following week here as well. But doesn't look like it has a lot of moisture to work with as of right now. Things can still change, but this ridge needs to be a little bit farther west here to allow better cross-polar flow back into the Pacific Northwest here. Then on through the extended, there'd be some cold air in place and maybe a Pacific system moving into that cold air, but that's way out into fantasy land at this point. Just one of many different plausible solutions. Now, this is looking at the Canadian here, 850 millibars and 850 millibar streamlines and temperature anomaly at 5,000 feet here. Just kind of showing what's going on in the upper atmosphere here as far as cold air. You'll see that north flow start to arrive here towards the end of the week. That cold air starts moving down the Rockies here into British Columbia, but kind of that offshore trajectory, though it does wrap back around into Oregon a little bit here. There's probably going to be some kind of system that develops with that. We'll watch that as we go. And then as we go into the extended a little bit more, you'll notice you get a little bit better path here towards the end of the run here, about 225 hours out. But we are way, way, way out there, and other models are not as robust with this polar Arctic air here across northern BC. This would be very favorable for some snowfall potential down into Washington, Oregon as well, even to the lower elevations, but models do not agree with that generally. So we're still trying to work out these details through the extended. For example, this is the European last night's run as well. North flow comes across, cold air, pretty good signal there, right? We're probably going to get colder than normal as we go through this upcoming weekend here. But beyond that, some differences start to emerge here. You can see the European does show that second lobe of cold air moving down across the region here, but it's a little bit more of an offshore flow across the area, as you can see here. But we are going to turn cold, so we will get some kind of snow chances here across the lower terrain of the Pacific Northwest. This is 2-meter temperature anomaly here, and you can see here much of the Pacific Northwest below average here. Put that into motion here, and we're going to get even colder as you see that north flow starts to come. And look at these temperatures come across BC, Washington, Oregon, and cold air moving down the Rockies. You can clearly see that terrain feature of the Rocky Mountains out there, the cold air up against it as it slides south. And then we continue to bring some rounds of cold air across the area here. Look at 240 hours out, much of BC well below average. And again, this is 2-meter temperature anomaly, if I didn't just say that a minute ago, and this was in Celsius here. But very cold signal coming up here through the extended and the European. Multiple rounds of cold air possible. This is looking at precipitation anomaly over the 15-day period. As we're dealing with this northwest flow across the region here, we're going to be dealing with the below average precipitation amounts here. So we're usually getting some Pacific systems, and that's why we got this deficit going on Cascades West all the way up the west coast of BC down towards Northern California right now. Now, this is looking at January 8th through January 21st percent of average precipitation. You can see that much of Washington, Oregon has been below average, even Idaho, Montana as well. Of course, California, with all their storms they've been getting here, is above average for this period. But right now, kind of surprisingly below average across some portions of BC, Washington, and Oregon. Now, taking a look at La Nina here, this goes out all the way 90 days. Here it's early December. You can see the clock is running here. The Christmas we just passed, the New Year. And if you look closely, you see the warm water start to build up here off the coast of South America and across the equatorial Pacific here. But you can see why this is such a driver of the weather across the entire globe here. You can see the warm water building up here in the western Pacific here, stronger trade winds than normal during a La Nina period. And that allows this warm water to build up here, and it affects the jet stream off the west coast of Asia, which can affect weather really across the globe, the Pacific Ocean being the biggest ocean on the planet here. So things will reverse here if we go to El Nino. We'll start to warm up out here, and we change the entire gradient across the Pacific Ocean here. So that's what we're watching for as we go up through this summer and into the fall months coming up here. But you can see La Nina clearly in charge here, but then start to wane as we get on in towards January and the new year here. You can see that warmer water coming in. This is the look at the temperature anomaly. So this is below average temperatures across the equatorial Pacific here, and you can kind of see that cold water dominating. But at the end of the run, look at these yellows start to infiltrate the equatorial Pacific and the coast of South America there. So things are changing, folks. We are going towards neutral and maybe El Nino conditions by next fall and winter. This was put out a few days ago here too. I haven't showed this one yet. Weeks 3 to 4 temperature outlook, February 4th through 17th here, and you can see the below average signal across much of the west, above average signal for the Pacific Northwest. And again, this was 3 days ago here, but the signal still is for above average precipitation across Pacific Northwest through the mid portion of February. This is risk of hazard temperatures. You can see late January into early February, they have included us across Pacific Northwest, and you can see how Arctic air as it spills down across the northern plains here, moderate here on into later January. This is risk of heavy precipitation here. Who knows about this? This is kind of up in the air right now. It doesn't mean too much to me yet. That's early February, and the signal is not very strong, really. But the risk of heavy snow, they say, does exist for the Cascades all the way down through the Sierra Nevada into California here. But anyway, yeah, the pattern change is likely coming. We're going to get colder here. Are we going to get chances of snow in Seattle, Portland, Vancouver, BC? That's kind of up in the air right now. We're still trying to work out the details here. You saw the model discrepancy here on some of the trajectories of these polar lobes as they're moving around across British Columbia here. Some of the issues here is the trajectory of that air tries to bring some air across the Rockies here. And a lot of times the models end up trending a little bit east with these systems, and that cold air is not as robust by the time it meets the Pacific Northwest here. So that's kind of what we're watching for. We're waiting to see some of these trends on the models to see how things evolve in the forecast coming up here. But anyway, yeah, hope you guys are liking these weather reports here. Put some comments below, click like, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll do this again tomorrow, and I'll talk to you guys then.